Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Two Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're giving you guys our first impressions of the brand new All That Remains album, Victim of the New Disease. So when we heard about this album coming out, I was never really like a fan of this band. I knew about them, didn't really listen to them, so I checked out some of their albums and I liked them a lot. They are a really cool band. They came out with a single. Did we react to it?
I don't think we reacted to it, but we did listen to it, and it gave me some hope because, like you, All That Remains is a band, well, I shouldn't say like you. I've liked All That Remains for a while, but it's like the older stuff. I'm one of those guys. I like the older stuff, but the last two, maybe three albums, I can't really remember exactly, but they fell down. They fell down. They couldn't pick themselves back up again. They tried to change their style a little bit. They got a lot cleaner, a lot more accessible, mainstream. I wasn't feeling it for the last couple albums, but the stuff prior to that is awesome. Wicked stuff. The single that I heard off this new album reminds me more of the older stuff. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it delivers and that they are back to the roots.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, and we're gonna go listen to this album in its entirety for the very first time, and we'll be right back to give you guys our first impressions of Victim of a New Disease. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, we're back. We just listened to Victims of the New Disease in its entirety, and I gotta say that my feelings are pretty mixed on this one. I was hoping for that old school All That Remains sound. I feel like we got a mixture of the older stuff and the more recent stuff, because this is definitely an album it's got those heavy roots, but it's definitely mixed in with a lot of that more newer accessible stuff. And this, I was getting flashbacks of Disturbed Evolution, which we reviewed a couple weeks ago, because it felt like every other song on this album was an acoustic ballad. I shouldn't say ballad, not a ballad,
no,
but an acoustic style song. Maybe not every other song, but there's like what, 3 or 4 out of the 10
Yeah, I don't
tracks?
feel like it was nearly as bad as the way Evolution did it. But
it wasn't, but
it was still present. I feel like it was a lot more appropriate because there were a lot of harder songs between them, so there was some distribution there as opposed to just a mess like that.
I agree. There were some songs that gravitated towards more than others, obviously. The very first track, the intro track, was my highest rated track, Fuck Love. That's the name of the song. But it's just hype, crazy, insane. There's a lot going on in the song. For being just under 3 minutes long, it feels a lot longer than it is. There's a lot of stuff crammed in there. The outro has one of the sickest screams I've ever heard in my life.
Scream was fucking crazy.
It's just so long. And you know what? Speaking of the scream, I'll just talk about the vocals in general on this album. Very, very good. The clean vocals, the harsh vocals, the growls, the high harshes, whatever, however you want to call them, they're all very, very good. Phil is a phenomenal vocalist, but I think he stepped his game up on this album, at least better than I've heard him in a long time. But his growls are deeper, they're meaner, his high harshes are just more visceral, and his cleans, and he's always had good cleans, but they just sound a lot cleaner, a lot more pure. With that said, my lowest rated song was track number 8, called Just Tell Me Something, featuring Danny Warsnop of Asking Alexandria fame. Again, a soft acoustic song. Both guys do clean vocals on this track. As I said, the vocal performance is great, but when I'm listening to an album as a metalhead, I want the metal. Right? I want that hardcore stuff. Now I know everything doesn't have to be heavy, and I'm fine with it when it's not. But I don't want 4 soft songs on an album, okay? Any one of these acoustic songs would have been great in a certain spot on the album, and I would have been happy with it. But the fact that there's 4, or 3, or however many there are, I just get bored of them after a while, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what else to say about, like, people are gonna shit on me. They shot at me for Disturbed. I didn't like them in Disturbed, but it's not what I want from metal. I'm sorry.
I mean, you know, I understand where you're coming from, that you don't want that much, but I still think it is appropriate to have something if you want it. I just think it should be few and far between, because if you keep throwing, I mentioned this in the Disturbed review, if you keep throwing out chill songs, the magic's gonna lose it. If this album had 9 heavy tracks or 9 tracks that were not like ballads or super duper chill, but the last song was something emotional, something like that, it would have so much power behind it and would feel amazing, and you probably wouldn't even be making the complaint that you're making.
I wouldn't be, but you want to know, I'm going to point something out right now. So I'm going to reference Disturbed again, because Disturbed did the Sound of Silence cover. It blew up. They had a massive success off that song alone, and then they wrote an album with a bunch of ballads on it. All That Remains did something similar if you think about it, because they did a cover of A Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks, and that song blew up pretty well. I don't know if it did as well. I mean, I know it didn't do as well as Sound of Silence, but I do know it did pretty well. I knew people that had no idea who All That Remains was listening to that song without even a clue that these guys were like a hardcore metal band, and maybe they thought, hey, let's tap into that audience. Let's write a few more songs that are a little soft. So it almost feels like to me that they kind of went with the same mentality down the same vein as Disturbed went.
That being said, I feel like this album is way better than what Disturbed put out. But
oh, I agree.
We're not here to talk about that album anymore.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to talk about the album that we just listened to.
Yep.
And I didn't think it was bad. I can't tell you, like, off of first impression that this album sucked. I will not say that. I think it was pretty good. It had good moments. Fuck Love was a great song.
Yep.
That scream you mentioned is ridiculous, and I love hearing it. My highest rated track was actually Wasteland, track number 4. The song is 4 minutes and 50 seconds. It actually feels like a 7-minute song, and I don't mean that, you know, with any malicious intent. The riffing in that song is not only really good and entertaining, but it's very diverse among the song. So the more you hear it and the more you hear all these riffs, it takes you to different places and it makes the song feel a lot longer than it really is, and I like that. I enjoyed that. There was no bad riffing in that song.
I found that song had some cool driving moments too, like that triplet rhythm pattern that was going on. That was really cool. It also had the choruses though were a little bit out of place. You mentioned they felt a little disjunct.
I mentioned that when we were listening to it. The choruses felt like, you know, you have this heavy part and then it just jumps to something melodic, which felt a little bit out of context.
How did you feel about all the I'm pretty sure every chorus on the album was clean.
You know, at the beginning of the album, I didn't mind it as much, but the longer we went through the album and it kept happening, I'm thinking, can they do something else?
Yeah.
Like, it got a little bit too consistent for me.
Yeah.
My least favorite, or at least my lowest rated, was Just Tell Me Something.
Same as me.
You already went over that, but I would like to talk about track number 5, Alone in the Darkness. I don't think this track was bad, and I think this track is 100% appropriate for its context in the album, because it's the first real super chill and relaxed song.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, after 4 tracks that have some energy behind it, I think having track 5 this way is okay. And one thing that I thought about when we were listening to it, the song has acoustic guitar. I believe it starts with acoustic guitar. It's an acoustic song, even though it has some electric guitar elements in it. I thought to myself, is it possible that acoustic guitar can be used by, like, or is used by bands as a crutch to create a soft song or soft atmosphere? Because I listened to that song and I thought to myself, why is the acoustic guitar even here? I liked the background sounds that the electric guitar was making. I really liked the guitar tone for the solo.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, why is it there? This song is perhaps better off without the acoustic guitar.
I wouldn't really call it a crutch. I'd call it more like a tool. You know, it's a tool they're using to get a sound that they're going after. The thing I don't like about it is if you're gonna write an acoustic song and you're gonna do a guitar solo, do an acoustic guitar solo. Don't switch to electric guitar and do the solo with an electric guitar. It sounds great, it's cool, but I'd be much more impressed if I heard an acoustic solo. Acoustic solos are much harder to do, so you have a nice clean acoustic solo with an acoustic song. That to me would be a lot more impressive than just having an electric solo over top of an acoustic song. It seems like a bit of a cop-out or a cheat to do it that way for me, but that's the choice they made, so.
Yeah, it was just the longer the album went on, the more we'd see chill tracks and stuff. I just, overall, I didn't feel it was really terrible.
I don't think it was terrible either, but I didn't love it. And this is the first impression. We listened to the album one time, so who knows how it's gonna be. One thing I wanna mention more though is song number 10, which is the title track, which was a pretty good song. One of the better ones on the album, I think.
It was okay in my opinion.
But I also think that song would have been perfect as an intro track. It sounds like an intro track.
I agree.
Just the energy and the presentation of it, it sounds like the beginning of an album.
Yeah.
I think they mixed the track listing up on here a little bit.
Yeah, the more I think about it, it's kind of weird having, I mean, I think I understand why they would put Fuck Love at the beginning, not only because it was the single, but because they made that song, it has the energy, it sounds like old All That Remains, so they said, okay, we're gonna rope people in with this song.
Yeah.
They'll hear this song and say, fucking All That Remains is back. Oh,
yeah.
they got the energy, and then the rest of the album goes as it goes. So I think that was a strategic placement, but it kind of feels like the last track feels like an intro track. You made a good point about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna see how these songs do for us because we're gonna be listening to this album forwards, backwards, any way we can for an entire week, and we'll be right back to give you guys our final review of Victim of the New Disease by All That Remains. Remember to comment, like, subscribe. If you guys are new to the channel, we read all your comments. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm by myself.
We'll see you guys later.
Keep them heads banging.